Hello guys, it is me, Cooper, and today we're going to be critiquing wage labor. Basically, what we're going to be delving into is why wage labor is basically manipulative and exploitative. So, first, before critiquing wage labor, we first have to analyze what wage labor is. Wage labor is basically paid labor. You sell your fruits of labor to the employee for a wage. Usually, this wage comes through money. Basically, if you sign an employment contract, you basically sell your labor quote-unquote voluntarily to the employer. Now, we will analyze why wage labor is an exploitive and manipulative concept to get the average proletarian to give up their labor. First and foremost, wage labor manipulates the average proletarian to give up their labor. Most likely, this wage depends on ability or skill, or the subjective value that the bourgeois elite puts on one's labor. Skill doesn't matter because no matter how much ability it takes to do the job, they're still doing way more work than the bourgeois elite does. By that logic, you'd pay the employer almost nothing and give the workers all the profit made off of their own labor. But if you were to apply a communist logic, let's say, you'd get, since all the workers contribute, wouldn't it be better to base one's labor off of their needs, since they contribute and make society better? Concepts like wage labor can clearly be exploited into the skill argument. It doesn't depend on the skill of the occupation. It depends on the contribution and needs. As long as they contribute, they get their true worth of labor, which would practically be their needs. Now, time for the argument that is usually put in place, since they're signing a contract to give the majority what they usually would get. Isn't it voluntary? No. First of all, you'd have to consider the circumstances in a capitalist society. How's it voluntary to give up your labor if essentially everyone else does the same method? You can't just say it's voluntarily when you're practically forced to do it by the sheer amount of oligarchies and businesses that ask you to sell your own labor. That's not the definition of voluntary. If everyone is doing it and you don't want to give up your own labor, you have to starve on the street, it seems. And no, you can't make your own union or collective, because the state, even the corporation, crushes it. Or either that, the state funds the corporation to crush it. And sometimes states even stop communes from happening. So essentially, the whole freedom of choice / voluntary argument is a bunch of bullshit. How can you have the freedom of choice when practically every firm, every corporation has this in their little manipulative contracts? It doesn't sound voluntary to me. Also, one more thing. Wage labor does actually pull people into poverty. Statistics show that 78% of the average worker lives paycheck to paycheck to make ends meet. We will be reading the rest of this right now. As I said, 78% of the workers live paycheck to paycheck to make ends meet. Nearly 10% of workers make $100,000 to live paycheck to paycheck, which that's only 10% of workers. That isn't much compared to, the 90 other percent of workers. More than 25% of workers do not set aside any savings each month. Nearly 75% of workers say they're in debt today. More than 50% think they always will be. More than 50% of minimum wage workers say they have to work more than one job to make ends meet. 70% of minimum wage workers are in debt. Debt, whether that be college, all of that. So essentially, what you have here is a bunch of manipulative bullshit conducted by the bourgeoisie. Thanks for listening to this video and watching it. Please Support me if you liked it. And I know my voice is fucking terrible. If you want to, just support me anywhere. Thanks for watching, and bye.